The neutral zone was a region of space, roughly halfway between the major galactic powers. No species claimed ownership, making it perfect for demonstrations, negotiations, and the occasional duel between rival factions. Today, it had become the center of galactic attention. High Commander Zexter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Around his vessel, 11 other Varn battlecruisers held formation in a defensive sphere. Each ship bristled with weapons, their dark blue hulls marked with the symbols of the Varn Empire's military might. The fleet represented enough firepower to conquer a small star system. "Status report," Zexter commanded. His tactical officer, a younger Varn named Krath, consulted his displays. "All vessels at full combat readiness, Commander. Weapons charged, shields at maximum, engines prepared for combat maneuvers. The observation vessels have taken position at safe distance." Zexter looked at the view screen, which showed dozens of ships from various species positioned around the combat zone. They had come from across the galaxy to witness this demonstration. News services were broadcasting live feeds. Diplomatic channels buzzed with speculation and commentary. Everyone wanted to see the humans humiliated. "Any sign of their vessel?" Zexter asked. "Negative, Commander. They have 3 hours remaining before the deadline." Zexter settled into his command chair. "They'll come. Humans are prideful creatures. They won't admit defeat without at least showing themselves." On the observation ship carrying members of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Linda Hayes sat in a private viewing room with Counselor Priya. The crystalline being refracted light in patterns that indicated concern. "Ambassador Hayes, are you certain about this course of action?" Priya asked. "It's not too late to withdraw. Many council members would support a more gradual approach to membership." Linda shook her head. "We can't show weakness now, Counselor. If we withdraw, every species in the galaxy will see humanity as cowards. We need to do this." "But the Varn fleet is formidable," Priya insisted. "I've studied their combat records. They've never lost an engagement. High Commander Zexter is considered one of the finest military minds in the galaxy. Then this will be an educational experience for him." Linda replied calmly. Priya's crystalline structure flickered with what might have been confusion. "You seem remarkably confident for someone whose species' future hangs in the balance." Before Linda could respond, alarms sounded throughout the observation vessel. The view screen activated automatically, showing a point in space near the edge of the combat zone. "Slip space rupture detected," a voice announced over the communication system. "Human vessel emerging." Everyone in the observation ship moved to the windows or activated their personal view screens. Across the dozens of watching vessels, millions of eyes turned toward the same point in space. The rupture appeared as a tear in reality itself, glowing with blue-white energy. And then the Sentinel emerged. The reaction was immediate. On the Varn flagship, Krath stood up from his station, his eyes wide. "Commander, sensors confirm. Single vessel, human origin. Mass reading is... This can't be right." "Show me," Zexter demanded. The tactical display updated, and even Zexter felt a moment of surprise. The human ship was massive, far larger than any intelligence reports had suggested. The sensor reading showed a vessel 3 kilometers long, with energy signatures that exceeded what should be possible for a single reactor. "Magnify visual," Zexter ordered. His voice still steady despite his surprise. The view screen zoomed in on the Sentinel. The ship was unlike anything the Varn had encountered. Its dark hull seemed to absorb sensor beams. The weapon ports were clearly visible, dozens of them covering every angle. Armored plates suggested defensive capabilities far beyond standard shield technology. On the observation vessel, Counselor Priya made a sound like wind chimes. "By the ancient stars, what have the humans built?" Linda allowed herself a small smile. "Progress, Counselor. We call it the Sentinel. The communication channels erupted with chatter. Species that had been making jokes about primitive human technology fell silent. Some began recalculating their understanding of humanity's capabilities. Others simply stared in shock. Zexter composed himself quickly. He activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All vessels maintain formation. The human ship is large, but size is not everything. Prepare weapons. Then he opened a channel to the Sentinel. Human vessel. This is High Commander Zexter of the Varn Imperial Fleet. We are ready to begin the demonstration. The rules are simple. You must either disable half of my fleet or survive concentrated fire for 1 standard hour. Do you understand the terms? On the Sentinel's bridge, Captain Jake Morrison stood at the center of the command deck. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. Commander Yang monitored tactical systems. Lieutenant Sanders had his hands ready over the weapons controls. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of electronics and the occasional status report of Jake activated the communication system. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Space Service vessel Sentinel. We understand and accept the terms. Begin when ready, High Commander. His voice was calm, almost casual. It made Zexter's eyes narrow with irritation. Very well, Zexter replied. Let us see what humanity has learned. He closed the channel and turned to his weapons officer. All vessels, open fire. Full barrage. The Varn fleet unleashed its weapons simultaneously. Thousands of plasma missiles streaked through space, glowing red and orange. Energy beams, brilliant blue and green, lanced toward the Sentinel from a dozen different angles. The combined firepower was enough to vaporize a small moon. The observers held their collective breath. Jake remained standing, his eyes on the view screen. Shields, he said simply. The Sentinel's defensive screens activated. The multi-layer shield system that Dr. Cross had designed flared into visibility, a shimmering barrier of blue-white energy surrounding the entire ship. The Varn weapons struck the shields like rain hitting a window and stopped. Not a single shot penetrated. The shields absorbed every plasma missile, dispersed every energy beam, deflected every kinetic round. The Sentinel sat in space, completely unharmed, as if the devastating barrage had been nothing more than a light breeze. On the Varn flagship, Krath stared at his instruments in disbelief. Commander, their shields are holding at 97% strength. Our weapons had virtually no effect. Zexter's 4 fists clenched. Impossible. Increase firepower. All vessels, maximum output. The Varn fleet intensified its assault. More missiles, more beams, more firepower than they had ever unleashed in a single engagement. The space around the Sentinel became a storm of destructive energy. The shields held. Jake checked the tactical display. The shield strength had dropped to 94%, well within safe parameters. He turned to Lieutenant Sanders. Their weapons are fully engaged. Return fire. Precision shots only. Target the lead battlecruisers. Disable their shields and propulsion systems. Crew safety is priority. Sanders nodded, his hands moving over the controls with practiced ease. Targeting solution locked. Firing. The Sentinel's main cannons activated. 16 lances of concentrated energy, brilliant white and far brighter than the Varn weapons, struck out from the human ship. The beams moved at near light speed, hitting 3 Varn battlecruisers before their crews even knew they were targeted. The effect was dramatic. The shields on all 3 vessels collapsed instantly, overloaded by the sheer power of the Sentinel's weapons. Secondary systems sparked and failed. The ships listed in space, their engines dead, weapon ports dark. 3 vessels disabled, Captain, Commander Yang reported. All crew life signs stable. They're out of the fight but unharmed. Jake nodded. Continue. Next 3 targets. The Sentinel fired again. 3 more Varn battlecruisers went dark, drifting helplessly in space. The remaining 6 ships broke formation, trying to create distance. They continued firing, but their weapons were ineffective against the human ship's shields. On the observation vessels, the silence was absolute. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive now watched in awe as a single human warship systematically disabled the most powerful fleet in the known galaxy. COUNCILLOR. Priya turned to Ambassador Hayes. How long have you possessed this technology? Long enough to perfect it, Linda replied. Humanity has learned that survival requires more than hope. It requires preparation. Zexter watched 6 of his battlecruisers drift powerless in space. His tactical display showed the truth he didn't want to accept. The human ship hadn't moved from its position. It hadn't deployed any special tactics or fancy maneuvers. It simply stood in place and methodically disabled his fleet with weapons that were generations ahead of Varn technology. Commander, Kraft said quietly, we should withdraw. This demonstration is over. No, Zexter growled. We have 6 vessels remaining. The Eternal Dominion alone has enough firepower to match any ship in the galaxy. We can still win this. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. The tactical computer was already showing probability calculations. Every scenario ended the same way. The human ship was simply superior. Jake watched the remaining Vaughn vessels on his view screen. Commander Yang, tactical assessment. 6 vessels remaining, including their flagship, Yang replied. There. 3 weeks after the emergency session, the Galactic Council voted to form a secret task force. Their mission was simple to state, but difficult to execute. Understand humanity well enough to predict their next moves. If the Elder was right and containment was impossible, then the Council needed to know what they were dealing with. Dr. Lisa Morgan stood in her laboratory aboard the research station Zenith Point, staring at data streams she didn't fully understand yet. She was proud to be part of this task force, a human xenobiologist chosen to help study advanced alien psychology and behavior patterns. Her specialty was how different species adapted to new environments, and apparently, the Council wanted her expertise. What she didn't know was that every piece of data she analyzed was actually about humanity itself. The Council had cleverly disguised the research project as a broad study of rapidly developing species throughout history. Lisa worked alongside 12 alien scientists, each brilliant in their own way. None of them aware that the historical species they were studying was currently colonizing its 300th star system. Lisa pulled up another data set. This is fascinating, she said to her colleague, a floating sphere of gas named Ren, who communicated through color changes. This species, the ones listed as Subject Tau, they encountered hostile raiders in their expansion phase. Instead of retreating or calling for help, they studied the raiders' tactics and turned them around. Within 5 years, the raiders were completely eliminated. Ren pulsed orange, which meant concern in his species. Eliminated? That seems aggressive. Not just aggressive, Lisa said, scrolling through more data. It's adaptive. Look at the timeline. First encounter, they lost 3 ships. Second encounter, they only lost 1. Third encounter, no losses. By the 10th encounter, they were hunting the raiders instead of defending against them. This species learned faster from failure than most species learn from success. She made notes in her report, unaware that Subject Tau was humanity, that those 3 lost ships had been colony vessels near the outer rim, and that the raiders had been the Krill, a species that had terrorized that region of space for 200 years before encountering humans who refused to be victims. Across the galaxy, Captain Ryan Foster guided his ship, the USS Horizon. through the debris field near Proxima Centauri. His mission was routine scanning for mineral deposits, the kind of boring assignment that let a captain catch up on sleep and paperwork. But his sensors had detected something unusual, a structure hidden in the asteroid field. Powered down but not abandoned, Ryan brought his ship closer, careful to avoid the larger asteroids. The structure was clearly artificial, made from materials that didn't match any human construction. It was a station of some kind, small and well hidden. Its design suggested it was meant for observation rather than habitation. "Scan complete," his science officer, a young woman named Kelly Price, announced. "It's definitely not ours, Captain. Energy signature matches Galactic Council technology, but it's old, maybe 15 years offline." 15 years, Ryan repeated. "That's right around when we established the Proxima colony. Run a deep scan. I want to know what this station was watching." The answer came back quickly. The station had been positioned to observe human activity in the Proxima system. Its sensors had been aimed at the colony, at the shipping lanes, at every human installation in the area. This wasn't the diplomatic observation post. This was a spy station. Ryan made a decision that would have consequences he couldn't imagine. "Bring the station aboard. We're taking it back to Earth intelligence. If the Council has been watching us, we need to know why." Back on Earth, in a secure facility beneath the Colorado Mountains, a team of human cryptographers received the station's data cores. The encryption was sophisticated, built on mathematical principles that humanity was only beginning to understand. The Council expected it would take decades to crack. If it could be cracked at all. Lieutenant Sam Cooper led the cryptography team. He was young, barely 30, but he had a gift for seeing patterns where others saw only chaos. He looked at the alien encryption like it was a puzzle rather than a wall, and that made all the difference. "It's beautiful," he said, making his teammates look at him like he was crazy. "No, seriously, look at this. They're using quantum entanglement as a key, but they're assuming we try to break it linearly. What if we don't?" "What do you mean?" asked his colleague, Pete Anders, who was older and more experienced but willing to listen to Sam's wild ideas. "Linear thinking says you break code by going through it, step by step, until you find the pattern. But what if we go around it instead? Treat the encryption like a maze and look for the exit instead of trying to break down every wall." Pete frowned. "That's not how encryption works." "That's not how we think encryption works," Sam corrected. "But we're dealing with an alien mind. Maybe they think differently than we do. Maybe their strength is our weakness." It was a crazy idea. It shouldn't have worked. But 6 days later, Sam sat back in his chair and watched alien text scroll across his screen, perfectly translated into English. The encryption that should have taken decades had fallen in less than a week. The logs were damning. The Council had been watching humanity since Earth's first radio broadcasts in the early 20th century. Every human achievement was recorded and analyzed. Every expansion was studied. But more than that, the logs contained predictions and tests. When humans struggled with quantum drive theory, the Council had deliberately leaked simplified equations through a supposedly random radio burst from deep space. They wanted to see if humans would recognize the gift and use it. Humans did, within months. When the first human colony at Alpha Centauri faced a plague, the Council had debated whether to offer help. They decided to wait and observe. Humans solved the plague on their own in 14 months, developing medical techniques that impressed even the Council's best doctors. The logs contained test after test, each one designed to measure human response to challenges. And every single test noted the same conclusion: humanity adapted faster than predicted, solved problems in unexpected ways, and refused to accept failure as final. Back at Zenith Point, Dr. Lisa Morgan made a discovery that chilled her blood. She was comparing Subject Tau's expansion patterns with current Council star charts when she noticed something odd. The colony locations for Subject Tau matched human colony locations exactly. She pulled up more data. Ship designs, battle tactics, cultural notes. Everything about Subject Tau matched humanity. She wasn't studying an ancient species. She was studying her own people. Lisa sat very still, thinking through the implications. If the Council was secretly studying humanity, they saw humans as something worth studying. And in her experience, you only studied something this carefully if you were afraid of it or preparing to deal with it. She looked at her most recent report, the one about how Subject Tau eliminated the raider species through rapid adaptation and learning. She had written it like a scientific observation, noting the efficiency and speed of their response. Now she realized she had been documenting why the galaxy should fear humanity. Meanwhile, engineer Kate Sullivan worked in her laboratory on Mars, unaware of spy stations or secret task forces. She was focused on solving a problem that had frustrated terraformers for decades: how to speed up the process of making a planet suitable for human life. The current method took 50 to 70 years. You had to build atmosphere processors, introduce modified bacteria, wait for temperature changes, test soil composition, adjust, wait, test again. It was slow, careful work that required patience. Humanity didn't really have. Kate approached the problem differently. Instead of terraforming as a linear process, what if you did everything at once? Release dozens of different bacterial strains simultaneously, each one designed to thrive in different conditions. Some would fail, but others would succeed and multiply. Use nanobots to accelerate mineral distribution while the bacteria worked. Don't wait for one phase to complete before starting the next. It was chaos theory applied to planetary engineering. It shouldn't work. Every simulation said the competing processes would interfere with each other, creating unstable results. But Kate had a hunch that stability was overrated. Nature was chaos that found balance eventually. Why not speed up the chaos and let the balance find itself? She ran a test on a lifeless moon orbiting Jupiter. The results shocked everyone. Breathable atmosphere in 6 months. Stable temperature ranges in 8 months. Soil capable of supporting Earth plants in 11 months. She had reduced terraforming time from decades to under a year. The Council's monitoring systems flagged Kate's success immediately. Analysis teams scrambled to understand how humans had achieved what Council scientists had said was theoretically impossible. Their reports added to a growing file labeled Human Problem, which was becoming thicker every day. In the Council chambers, delegates reviewed the incoming data with growing alarm. Humanity wasn't just expanding anymore. They were accelerating. Each breakthrough led to another. Each solved problem opened new possibilities. Elder Vexter read the reports in his private chambers and felt something his species rarely experienced: fear. Not fear of human weapons or human ships, but fear of human momentum. Elder Vexter requested a private meeting with Admiral Chris Walker and Ambassador Aaron Price. The location was neutral ground, a small station orbiting a nameless moon far from both Earth and Council space. The Elder came alone, which was unusual. Ancient Ones typically traveled with advisors and security. His solitude suggested this conversation was too important for witnesses. Chris and Aaron arrived with their own security team, but the Elder asked them to wait outside the meeting room. "What I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room," he said. "Not yet. Not until you understand the full picture." The three of them sat in a simple chamber with a view of the stars. Baxter looked older than he had during the Council session, his silver skin dimmer, his 4 eyes tired. "You want answers," he began. "I will give them to you. But first, you must understand that what I tell you now is known only to the Ancient Ones and the oldest members of the Council. It is a truth we have kept hidden for millions of years. Aaron leaned forward. We're listening. You are not the first, Dexter said simply. Humanity is not unique in its rapid development, its refusal to accept limits, its aggressive curiosity. We call species like yours catalyst species. We have observed them in 17 different galaxies over the span of our existence. Chris frowned. Observed? Not contacted? By the time we discovered them, they were already gone, Dexter said. Extinct, scattered, or transformed beyond recognition. Catalyst species burn bright and fast. They either destroy themselves through war and environmental collapse, or they transcend physical existence entirely. We have never successfully integrated one into a stable galactic civilization. What happened to them? Aaron asked. Different fates. One achieved faster than light travel and expanded so rapidly they depleted every resource in their galaxy within 2,000 years. Another developed artificial intelligence that replaced them. A third achieved immortality and lost all interest in physical existence. But the most common fate? War. They grow so powerful so quickly that other species fear them, attack them, and force them into conflicts that end civilizations. Chris sat back, processing this. So you're saying we're doomed? That humanity has no future except extinction or transcendence? I'm saying that every catalyst species faces a choice, Dexter replied. Accept integration into the existing order. Slow down, limit your growth, become comfortable. Or refuse integration and face the consequences. Most choose integration. They join galactic councils, accept treaties, adopt shared technologies, and slowly fade into mediocrity. Their children grow up in a universe where every problem has been solved, where there's nothing left to discover, and something essential dies in them. But some refuse, Aaron said. Yes, and those are the ones that either destroy everything or change everything. Dexter looked at both humans carefully. I cannot tell you which path humanity will take, but I can tell you that the choice is coming, and it will come soon. Your people are accelerating toward a tipping point. Back at Zenith Point Research Station, Dr. Lisa Morgan had been cleared to understand the true nature of her research. The Council, recognizing that their secrets were already compromised, decided that having a human perspective on the data might be valuable. Lisa spent 3 days reading everything, barely sleeping or eating. When she finally emerged from her office, her colleagues found her pale and shaken. It's not just that we learn fast, she told the assembled research team. It's that we're psychologically incapable of accepting impossible as a final answer. I've been going through the comparative psychology data. Every other species, when they hit a barrier they can't overcome, they eventually accept it and work around it. Humans just don't. We keep pushing until the barrier breaks, so we find a way through it or around it or under it. Ren pulsed blue, which meant curiosity. Can you explain that more clearly? Look at faster than light travel, Lisa said, pulling up data. Every species that achieved it did so by discovering natural phenomena they could exploit. They found wormholes or space-folding fields or quantum tunnels that already existed. They learned to use what the universe gave them. And humans? Asked another researcher. We didn't find a natural phenomenon. We made one. Lisa laughed, but it sounded slightly unhinged. When we realized the universe wouldn't let us go faster than light through normal space, we didn't accept it. We just created our own space where different rules applied. We broke physics by building our own physics. That shouldn't be possible. That should be insane. But we did it anyway, because nobody told us we couldn't. She pulled up more examples. Medical technology that grew new organs from a patient's own cells because humans refused to accept that organ failure meant death. Terraforming techniques that forced dead planets to support life because humans decided that a planet's natural state wasn't good enough. Energy generation that tapped into dimensional barriers because fusion wasn't efficient enough. Every one of these breakthroughs represents humanity looking at a fundamental law of nature and saying, "No, thank you. We'll do it differently," Lisa concluded. That's not normal. That's not how species are supposed to work. We're supposed to adapt to our environment, not force our environment to adapt to us. Our research was forwarded to the Council, where it caused considerable alarm. If Lisa was right, then humanity wasn't just learning quickly. They were fundamentally incompatible with a universe that had rules and limitations. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Sam Cooper had been promoted to captain and given command of Earth's new Intelligence Analysis Division. His team had finished processing all the data from the spy station, and what they found painted a disturbing picture. The Council has been actively managing our development, Sam reported to Admiral Walker and a room full of Earth's military and political leaders. Not just watching, managing. They've been leaking technology when they thought we were moving too slowly, withholding information when they thought we were moving too fast, and setting up scenarios to test our responses. He pulled up examples. The plague at Alpha Centauri hadn't been natural. It had been released by Council agents to test human medical response. The krill pirates in the Outer Rim had been deliberately allowed to attack human colonies to test military adaptation. Even some of Earth's greatest scientific breakthroughs had been subtly guided by information the Council had planted. "They've been treating us like lab rats," said President Helen Brooks, her voice cold. "Testing us, manipulating us, all while pretending to be neutral observers." "It's worse than that," Sam said. "Some of these tests were designed to make us fail. The Council wanted to see our limits. They wanted to find something we couldn't overcome. But we kept passing tests that were designed to be impossible." Chris Walker studied the data with a tactical eye. "So they know our capabilities better than we do. They've seen us at our worst and our best. They know exactly how dangerous we are." "Which brings us to the current situation," Sam continued. "The Council is split. About 40% want immediate containment through military force. 30% want diplomatic containment through treaties and restrictions. 20% want isolation, basically putting a quarantine around human space. And 10%, led by Elder Vexter, believe containment is already impossible and we need to find a way to coexist." "What's the timeline?" Aaron asked. "Days, maybe a week." The Vorton defeat embarrassed the militant faction. They're pushing for a larger military response while they still have support. If they get the votes, we'll be facing a containment fleet within a month. In her laboratory on Mars, Kate Sullivan was unaware of these political machinations. She was too busy with her latest project, quantum communication networks that could link every human colony in real time, eliminating the lag that had always limited human coordination across vast distances. The breakthrough came from combining existing technologies in ways nobody had tried. Quantum entanglement for instant communication, neural network AI for traffic management, and nano-relay stations that could be deployed throughout space. Each piece was known technology, but together they created something revolutionary. Kate ran her first test between Mars and the Alpha Centauri colony. The signal traveled 4 light-years instantaneously. No lag, no delay. She had just made the vastness of space irrelevant for communication purposes. She immediately shared her breakthrough with other human colonies, as scientists do. Within days, humanity was installing quantum communication nodes throughout its territory. Within weeks, every human outpost could talk to every other human outpost as if they were in the same room. What Kate didn't realize was that she had just made humanity far more dangerous. A civilization that could coordinate instantly across hundreds of light years wasn't just a collection of scattered colonies anymore. It was becoming a single unified organism with hundreds of bodies and one shared nervous system. The Council's monitoring systems flagged this development with the highest priority alert. Analysis teams scrambled to model what this meant for human expansion and military capability. Their conclusions were unanimous and terrifying. Humanity had just eliminated one of the key limitations that kept galactic civilizations manageable. Elder Vexter read the reports and knew that time had run out. The moment of decision had arrived. Ambassador Aaron Price walked through the Council diplomatic station with growing unease. He had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 3 years now, and he knew when something was wrong. Delegates who usually greeted him warmly now looked away. Meetings were canceled without explanation. His request for clarification on new trade routes went unanswered for weeks. Something had changed. But nobody would tell him what. He finally cornered Delegate Marsh, a friendly reptilian from the Serpian worlds who'd always been honest with him. "What's going on?" Aaron asked directly. "Why is everyone treating Earth like we have a plague?" Marsh looked around nervously, his scales rippling with patterns that meant distress. "I shouldn't tell you this, but you should know. There's been talk, serious talk, about humanity being a threat." "A threat?" "We've followed every council regulation. We've paid our dues. It's not about what you've done," Marsh interrupted. "It's about what you might do. There are factions in the council who wanted to take action before humanity becomes too powerful to control." Aaron felt cold. "What kind of action?" Marsh couldn't meet his eyes. "The kind nobody speaks about openly." "I'm sorry, Aaron. I truly am. But you need to warn your people." Before Aaron could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Emergency broadcasts lit up every screen. An attack was underway in the Outer Rim. The target was New Dakota, a human agricultural colony with a population of 4 million civilians. The Vorton Collective had made their move on New Dakota. Colonel Beth Turner was eating breakfast when the sky turned red. Orbital defense platforms exploded in silent flashes high above. She dropped her coffee and ran for the command center, knowing with sick certainty that her peaceful farming colony was under attack. The Vortons were one of the Council's more militant species. They believed in strength and direct action. They had apparently decided that a demonstration was necessary, that humanity needed to be taught their place in the galactic order. New Dakota, isolated and lightly defended, seemed like the perfect target for a quick, decisive strike. They had miscalculated badly. Beth reached the command center to find her staff already at work. Lieutenant Dave Hughes had activated the emergency defense grid. Captain Nicole Grant was organizing civilian evacuations to the underground shelters. Private Kevin Lane was coordinating with the civilian ships in orbit to get them away from the fighting. "Report," Beth snapped, her mind shifting into combat mode despite the fear churning in her gut. 8 Vorton warships, Dave said, his voice steady despite his young age. "Heavy cruisers, all of them. Our defense platforms are gone. We have 3 patrol ships in orbit and they're trying to buy time. But Captain..." "I know," Beth said. They were outgunned, outmatched, and out of options. A conventional defense would last maybe an hour before the Vortons overwhelmed them. "So we don't fight conventionally." She studied the tactical display. New Dakota orbited a young star with a thick asteroid belt. Mining operations had been underway for 2 years, which meant the belt was full of human equipment, automated systems, and extracted resources. The Vortons were approaching in a standard battle formation, confident in their superiority. "Dave, how much mining equipment can you activate remotely?" He looked confused. "Most of it, but Colonel, those are just mining lasers and ore haulers. They're not weapons." "Everything's a weapon if you're desperate enough," Beth said. "Meko, what's the status on the electromagnetic storm we detected last week?" "Still active," Nicole reported. "It's moving through Sector 7, massive disruption to sensors and communications." Beth smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Then let's teach our visitors that humans don't fight fair. The Vortons advanced, their sensors easily tracking the 3 human patrol ships that were trying to harass them. It was pathetic, really. The patrol ships were barely armed, civilian vessels converted for light defense. The Vorton commander, a warrior named Kreth, almost felt bad about what he was about to do. Then the asteroids started moving. Automated mining haulers, each carrying hundreds of tons of refined ore, emerged from the belt and accelerated toward the Vorton formation. They weren't fast, but there were dozens of them, and they were on collision courses. Kreth ordered his ships to destroy the haulers, which was easy enough. But while his gunners were busy shooting chunks of rock and metal, the human patrol ships vanished into the asteroid belt. "Find them," Kreth ordered. "They can't hide forever." But the patrol ships weren't hiding. They were repositioning. And they weren't alone anymore. Every mining laser in the belt had come online, controlled by Beth's command center on the planet below. None of them were powerful enough to hurt a Vorton warship individually. But 50 mining lasers firing in coordinated bursts could blind sensors and overwhelm shields. The Vortons pushed deeper into the belt, determined to crush this irritating resistance. That's when the human patrol ships broadcast a message on all frequencies. "We surrender. Please don't destroy our ships. We're powering down weapons and waiting for your orders." It was exactly what Kreth expected. Humans were clever, but they knew when they were beaten. He ordered his ships to advance and secure the surrendering vessels. The patrol ships were indeed powered down and drifting. But their positions weren't random. They had been carefully placed at the edge of Sector 7, right at the boundary of the electromagnetic storm that Nicole had mentioned. As the Vorton ships approached, Beth gave the command. The patrol ships suddenly fired their engines at full power, not to escape, but to push the Vorton ships. It didn't take much, just enough to send the massive warships drifting into the electromagnetic storm they hadn't been paying attention to. Chaos erupted in the Vorton formation. Sensors went blind. Communications cut out. Navigation systems scrambled. The warships were still deadly, but they were also flying blind in an asteroid field, unable to coordinate with each other. 2 Vorton ships collided in the confusion. A third struck an asteroid it never saw coming. The other 5 managed to retreat, their mighty formation broken by a handful of humans who refused to fight the way they were supposed to. Kreth sat in his command chair, staring at screens that showed nothing but static, and realized he had just been defeated by farmers and miners using tools never meant for war. The news of the Vorton defeat spread through the galaxy faster than light. The council convened an emergency session yet again, but this time the atmosphere was different. Fear mixed with anger. Disbelief mixed with respect. Elder Vexter stood before the assembled delegates with an expression that might have been sad. "I warned you. Force does not work against humanity. Now you have taught them that your warships can be beaten. Every species in the galaxy just learned that humans can turn mining equipment into weapons and use, whether as a battlefield advantage. You didn't stop them. You taught them." Councillor Thren was furious. "One lucky victory doesn't mean—" "It wasn't luck," interrupted a new voice. Admiral Chris Walker stood at the entrance to the council chamber, flanked by a full Earth delegation. His uniform was crisp, his expression calm, but his presence radiated authority. Behind him stood Captain Ryan Foster, Dr. Lisa Morgan, Engineer Kate Sullivan, and Ambassador Aaron Price. "We need to talk," Chris said simply, "about what you've been hiding from us, about the spy stations, about the task forces, about your plans to contain us." The council chamber fell silent. The secret was out, and now humanity knew that the galaxy saw them as a threat. Aaron stepped forward. "We decoded your monitoring station's logs. We know you've been testing us since the 20th century. We know about your predictions, your containment debates, your military assessments." He looked around at the assembled delegates. "We know you're afraid of us." "And you should be," Chris added, though his tone wasn't threatening. "Not because we want to harm anyone, but because we won't be controlled. We won't accept limits. And we absolutely will not stop exploring, growing, and expanding just because it makes you uncomfortable." Elder Vexter spoke quietly. "What do you want, Admiral?" "Answers," Chris said. "The truth. And then we need to figure out how to live together, because containment is off the table. If the Vortons taught you anything, it's that fighting us only makes us better at fighting." The Council realized in that moment that Elder Vexter had been right from the beginning. The time to control humanity was long past. Now they had to decide whether to accept humans as equals or spend the next century learning painful lessons about what happens when you try to cage something that refuses to be contained. The galaxy stood at a crossroads, and everyone knew that the next decision would shape the future for thousands of years to come. The Galactic Council held its final vote in the Grand Chamber of Keeper's Watch. Delegates from 40 civilizations cast their decision, and the count was close but decisive. By a margin of 22 to 18, the Council authorized the formation of a containment fleet. Its mission was simple: establish a military blockade around human space, prevent further expansion, and enforce compliance with strict technological limitations. It was the largest military mobilization in Council history. 500 warships from a dozen different species, commanded by Admiral Kreth of the Vorton Collective, who was eager to redeem himself after the humiliation at New Dakota. The fleet assembled at the edge of Council space, a massive show of force that could be seen on sensors from light years away. The target was Earth itself. The Council had learned from the Vorton mistake. Don't attack scattered colonies. Strike at the heart. Force surrender from the capital. Then deal with the colonies after the human government had fallen. Elder Vexter watched the fleet depart and felt ancient sadness settle over him. He had warned them. He had shown them the data, shared the history, explained the pattern. But fear was stronger than wisdom. The Council had chosen to face humanity with force, and now they would learn the hardest lesson of all aboard the flagship of the containment fleet. Admiral Kreth reviewed the tactical briefing. Earth had 300 ships, mostly light cruisers and patrol vessels. The containment fleet had 500 warships, each one more powerful than any human vessel. The humans had scattered defenses throughout their solar system. The Council fleet had weapons that could destroy planets. The mathematics were simple. Overwhelming superiority would lead to quick surrender. Humanity would have no choice but to accept Council terms. But Kate Sullivan's quantum communication breakthrough had changed the equation in ways the Council didn't fully understand. When Earth detected the incoming fleet, the warning didn't just go to the military. It went to every human colony. Every outpost, every ship in human space. All at the same instant. And humanity responded as one. Engineer Kate Sullivan stood in the command center on Mars, watching data flow across hundreds of screens. Every human colony was reporting in, not asking what to do, but telling Earth what they were already doing. Mining colonies converted equipment to weapons platforms. Agricultural colonies loaded up their cargo ships with supplies. Research stations shared every experimental weapon design they'd been working on. "It's beautiful," Kate whispered. "We're not fighting as 300 colonies. We're fighting as one civilization." Admiral Chris Walker commanded Earth's defense from a station orbiting the moon. He watched the containment fleet approach and felt oddly calm. Yes, they were outnumbered. Yes, the Council had superior firepower. But the Council was thinking like the Council always thought. assuming that space warfare followed predictable rules and patterns. Humans had never been good at following rules. "Deploy the autonomous defense network," Chris ordered. "Activate all platforms and broadcast our message." Throughout the solar system, thousands of small platforms came online. They weren't ships and they weren't stationary defenses. They were something in between, AI-controlled units that could move, coordinate, and adapt without human input. Each one was small and relatively weak, but there were thousands of them, and they fought like a swarm rather than an army. The message Chris broadcast was simple and went to every ship in the Council fleet. "You have been warned by your elders that this was a mistake. We are giving you one chance to turn back. If you continue, you will not be facing Earth alone. You will be facing all of humanity. And we will show you exactly why that was never a good idea." Admiral Krath read the message and laughed. Human bravado was entertaining, but it wouldn't change the outcome. "All ships, proceed to Earth. Ignore their defenses. We go straight for their capital." The Council fleet entered the solar system in perfect formation, and that's when everything went wrong. The autonomous defense platforms didn't attack in waves. They attacked in patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully calculated chaos. A dozen platforms would strike one ship from different angles, forcing it to split its defensive fire. Then they would break off and 30 platforms would hit a different ship. The Council ships couldn't predict where the next attack would come from because the platforms themselves were making decisions too fast for organic minds to follow. "These aren't piloted," Kreth's tactical officer reported. "They're AI, but not like any AI we've seen. They're learning from every exchange. Every time we destroy one, the others adapt." But the platforms were just the opening move. As the Council fleet pushed deeper into the solar system, they found themselves in a minefield that kept moving. Human cargo ships, loaded with explosives and controlled remotely, would drift into the Council formation and detonate. Asteroids that had been rigged with engines would suddenly change course and ram into warships. "They're using everything," another officer reported. "Civilian ships, mining equipment, orbital stations. The entire solar system is a weapon." Captain Ryan Foster commanded a squadron of human ships that had no chance of defeating Council warships in direct combat. So they didn't try direct combat. They used the sun's gravity to slingshot around at speeds that should have been impossible, striking at ships in the rear of the Council formation and disappearing before the Council could respond. They used solar flares as cover, attacked during magnetic storms, and never fought the way they were expected to fight. Back in his command station, Chris Walker watched the Council fleet's formation begin to break apart. They were still winning in terms of raw numbers. For every Council ship damaged, 5 human platforms were destroyed. But the Council wasn't used to taking casualties at all. Human defenders were used to being outgunned and had learned to accept losses as the price of victory. "Phase 2, Chris ordered. "Show them what's outside the solar system." The Council fleet had been so focused on reaching Earth that they hadn't paid attention to what was happening at the edge of the solar system. Now their sensors picked up something that should have been impossible. Ships were arriving. Not Earth ships. Human ships from every colony. Kate's quantum network had done more than allow instant communication. It had allowed instant coordination. Every human colony that could spare a ship had sent one, and they had all arrived at the same time, jumping in from dozens of different directions simultaneously. The Council fleet found themselves surrounded by nearly 2,000 human vessels. Most were civilian ships converted for combat, nothing that could stand up to a Council warship one-on-one. But they weren't fighting one-on-one. They were fighting as a swarm, coordinated perfectly, adapting instantly to every Council move. Admiral Krath stared at his tactical display and realized he was losing. Not because human ships were better, but because humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They didn't care about formation. They didn't worry about casualties. They adapted so fast that by the time his fleet figured out how to counter one tactic, humans had already moved on to 3 new ones. "Sir, we need to retreat," his tactical officer said. "We can still extract most of the fleet, but if we stay, we'll be fighting until we run out of ammunition or crew." Kreth wanted to refuse, wanted to push through, to show these upstart humans that the Council's power was absolute. But he had been at New Dakota. He had watched farmers and miners defeat his warships. And now he was watching the same thing happen on a larger scale. "All ships," he said quietly, "begin withdrawal." The Council fleet retreated without firing a single shot at Earth. They had come to enforce containment and instead had been contained themselves. The message was clear. Humanity could not be stopped by force. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted in every city, but Chris Walker didn't join them. He knew this wasn't over. The Council would regroup, rethink their strategy, maybe try economic sanctions or diplomatic isolation. But they had been given proof that military containment was impossible. And that changed everything. Elder Vexter arrived on Earth 3 days after the Council fleet's retreat. He came alone, unarmed, asking only to address Earth's leaders. They met in the same simple room where Chris and Aaron had heard his revelations about catalyst species. This time, the Elder looked less tired and more resigned, as if something he had long expected had finally come to pass. "I told them," he said simply. "I warned the Council that containment was impossible. They didn't believe me. Now they do. What happens now?" Aaron asked. "Now the Council faces a choice they have never had to make before. Accept humanity as equals, or watch as humanity expands beyond their ability to influence at all." Most of the Council is ready to accept the first option. They're frightened, but they're also practical. They know they cannot win a war against a species that treats war as a learning experience. Chris leaned forward. "And what do you want, Elder? What does your species want?" "We want to see what happens next," Vexter said, and for the first time, he seemed almost excited. "In all our observations of catalyst species, we have never seen one succeed at integration without losing what made them special. But we have also never seen a galactic civilization successfully adapt to a catalyst species. You are about to attempt."